I just cannot believe what the Democrats are doing to Tara Reade and how they're treating Tara Reade. And the reason I'm making this video, it's May 3rd, 2020. The mainstream Dems push to move past Biden allegation in wake of denial as DNC responds. There's literally a story here saying that the DNC responded Saturday to a New York Times call for a probe into the allegation, telling Fox News it was an absurd suggestion on its face. To even take Tara Reade seriously, to even investigate it, the Democrats are saying it's absurd. Don't even talk about it. Don't even bring it up. And so what I've done is I've actually come up with 20 different reasons why the Tara Reade allegation is incredibly credible. And I believe Tara Reade, and I think if what Tara Reade said is true, it's absolutely disgusting what Joe Biden did to her. It should prohibit him from being the nominee. I think this is one of the greatest examples of leftist hypocrisy of all time, and it's honestly just so revolting and so just bad. It shows the Democrats, they engage in bad faith. They have no principles. They don't really care about women. They don't really care about sexual assault, no values, nothing to stick by. The fact that they would treat Tara Reade this way and stand behind Joe Biden and just push this under the rug. And when you compare that to what they did to Christine Ford and Brett Kavanaugh, a completely unbelievable, incredible, no corroborating evidence whatsoever, Christine Ford, and they wanted to ruin Brett Kavanaugh's life and stop a Supreme Court nominee, and yet they're going to stand behind a man named Joe Biden, who's now been credibly accused of sexual assault, is honestly just one of the most teachable moments of all time. This just goes to show that we should never be taking anything the Democrats, the media, everybody in the media, the Democrat Party press, Hollywood, academia, and on and on and on. The list goes on. And so I put together these lists of the facts and the differences between the Christine Ford allegation and the Tara Reade allegation to show and prove beyond a doubt, using factors and things that lawyers and everybody else, investigators, look to determine credibility. And so to start off, Tara Reade has 4 corroborating witnesses. She told her immediate family. She told supervisors. She told other friends. She told other work friends. There are now 4 people that corroborate Tara Reade's allegation, including 4 people all the way back into the early 90s. And the thing with Christine Ford, zero. And not only that, but many of the people that Christine Ford actually referenced and mentioned about the time period in the story said they specifically don't recall it. So you have with Tara Reade an instance where you literally have multiple corroborating witnesses telling people that, yes, Tara Reade spoke up about this and sexual harassment from Joe Biden and sexual assault from Joe Biden early at the time, told me about it. Christine Ford has her own mother, she told, and she's told a story about her mother that's completely consistent and is corroborated by the phone call by her mother into the C-SPAN show. Christine Ford, the exact opposite. 0 corroborating witnesses and 0... and then many of those people that are apparently part of the story didn't even remember it. Another big point. First of all, let me just say, that's point number 1. Before I go on, let me just say, I watched Christine Ford's testimony. I listened to Christine Ford. I've read the news about it. I've looked into it. I just got done listening to Tara Reade's hour-long podcast interview. And so I've listened to both of these women. I didn't get to see video of Tara Reade, but I listened to her voice. I did, and then I've listened to Christine Ford. Just listening to them, Tara Reade comes off way more credible. Just in her demeanor, she comes off as genuine, believable, honest, etc., etc. Christine Ford came off as coached, theatrical, stagey, all these other things. And so just on a basic sort of credibility standpoint, genuineness standpoint, Tara Reade comes off way more. So you've got let's see, 4 corroborating witnesses versus 0, and even some negative inferences from the alleged witnesses. That you've got actual credibility determinations based on just demeanor and tone of voice. The details from Tara Reade's story are consistent with other Biden behavior from multiple other women. Apparently there's like 8 or 9 other women, including Lucy Flores and the rest, who have talked about Joe Biden being creepy, handsy, all of that stuff. We've got video evidence. Biden has kind of been a creepy guy. He says that's just who he is and blah, 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 blah. But there's multiple other women that have come forward and said that Joe Biden was sexually creepy towards them. And so Tara Reade's story is completely consistent with all of that. Christine Blasey Ford, not consistent at all with other Kavanaugh behavior. Brett Kavanaugh's never had a reputation for being creepy. All of the other women that worked around Brett Kavanaugh said this doesn't sound anything like him. He was nothing but a gentleman, blah, 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 blah. So you have other women coming forward against Biden that's consistent with what Tara Reade has said versus Christine Blasey Ford. Nobody else coming forward against Kavanaugh behavior. And so in terms of the number of sort of consistency and pattern of behavior, with Biden, there's actually a pattern. With Kavanaugh, no pattern. Tara Reade, this is number 3. Tara Reade, she came forward early, 1993. And that was right away after this. And she told her mother, she told other people. She filed complaints, she filed documents, which we're trying to get to, which Biden won't let happen. Christine Ford did not come forward early. Never told anybody else about this, never mentioned Brett Kavanaugh's name, didn't even mention Brett Kavanaugh in her alleged therapy records that she used to say in 2012 she brought this up. Brett Kavanaugh's name, of course, was never in those therapy records. And my understanding is the therapy records were never even disclosed to the committee in any event. But the point is, Tara Reade, she came forward very early. Christine Ford, she did not come forward very early. Tara Reade knew very specific details about the atmosphere in the Biden office, the actual story, the event, what happened. She recalled specific things, like she said when Biden pushed her up against the wall, she said it was a very cold wall. Very, very minute, small details about the sexual assault that investigators use to indicate credibility. Because if you remember specific details, tiny little details like that, you would only really think to talk about that if it was really true and you actually knew it. Christine Ford, on the other hand, didn't really know anything about Brett Kavanaugh. Didn't know about. She said she barely knew him. Brett Kavanaugh claimed that he didn't really know her. Christine Ford was very, very fuzzy on the details. Didn't remember much. Even admitted that it was fuzzy and everything else. And so you've got a very specific, believable details from Tara Reade, and then with Christine Ford, very vague. No specific details. Barely knew him. Didn't really know what was going on. That's number 4. Number 5, Tara Reade knew specific details of multiple Biden incidents, other people, the sexual harassment in the office. Tara Reade could name the other people that worked with her at the time. Tara Reade could name the other people that she spoke to at the time. In distinction to that, Christine Ford did not know any specific details of the other people around Brett or other Brett instances. This was allegedly a one-time thing. Only, she didn't hang out with Brett all the time. She couldn't name the other people around at the party. Certainly not all of them. Couldn't name other people who could corroborate sort of the atmosphere around Brett Kavanaugh and that would suggest that this is a believable story, unlike Tara Reade, who could specifically name multiple people who were sexually harassed by Joe Biden, and that makes Tara Reade's story much more believable. Number 6, Tara Reade, very calm in explaining it, very matter of fact, Doesn't come off as melodramatic, theatrical, stagey, performative, or coached. Again, so just using her demeanor, very calm, matter of fact, whereas Christine Ford was not calm, came off very theatrical, very like staged, kind of performative kind of way of coming off. And that's kind of mentioned that earlier, but that's number 6. Number 7, Tara Reade has talked about consistent behavior from other witnesses at the time. She claimed her mom was concerned about Tara Reade's ability to stand up and file charges, etc. Tara Reade talked about how very specific details about her conversations with her mother, and exactly what her mother said, why her mother said it. Her mother was like very strong for her to report it, to go to the cops, to go directly to Joe Biden's chief of staff. And Tara Reade said, that's not the way it's done. I have to go through this chain of command, blah, blah, blah. But then there's also the CNN video or C-SPAN video where Tara Reade's mother called in and basically asked, how can we fix this problem in Washington where people can't, file charges against politicians? And she said she knew somebody who had a problem and couldn't do anything, and didn't come forward with it. So that's another piece of actual corroborating evidence from Tara Reade that is consistent with what she says other people did, and is piece of corroborating evidence, and a big one. Christine Ford, in distinction, had 0 other witnesses who could corroborate even portions or a side of the story. No corroborating evidence about the sexual allegations at all. Yeah, she had some people who could come forward and say, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh was a drinker and he was a partier, and Brett Kavanaugh liked to party and have drinks and stuff. That's not the same thing as having somebody come forward and say, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh had a reputation for being a sexual harasser and a creep. Whereas with Joe Biden, you do. And Christine Ford also doesn't have evidence of somebody reacting to her telling somebody else that ended up as a recording that we can actually use as corroboration. So that's number 7. Tara Reade has that corroborating piece of evidence. Christine Ford has nothing. Number 8, Tara Reade, she spoke to others about it at the time. Tara Reade immediately told others. She told her mom. She told other supervisors. She spoke about it at the time. In contradistinction, Tara Reade did not speak to anybody else about it. She says that she'd told her husband about it, but that was like 30 years later. Do you really wait until that later in life to tell your husband about something like that? She also had therapist notes that conflicted with the husband's story, and she had she changed her story, inaccurate timeline. Initially, she said it happened in the mid 1980s, and then she backtracked to the early 1980s, and very, very inconsistent changing story, whereas Tara Reade spoke to others about it and has always had the exact same story that's completely made sense this entire time. Number 9, the experts who have actually looked at Christine Ford's opinion, experts on credibility, suggested that Christine Ford was not telling the truth because of her demeanor, her tone of voice, inability to recall specific facts, changing the story, inaccurate timelines, all of those things. No similar expert opinion credibility problems with Tara Reade. That's number 9. Number 10. Tara Reade was able to quickly and easily answer questions in a very cool, calm, precise manner. She was asked a question. She had an explanation for it. She could answer it, or she could explain why she couldn't answer it. It was very consistent, believable. Christine Ford, on the other hand, very, very difficult time answering questions. Slow, theatrical, over dramatic with saying why she couldn't respond, and then this is reasons why people didn't find her credible, like people find Tara Reade. Very hard time answering questions, and of course, let's be real, both Tara Reade and Christine Ford are both very smart professional women. And while other people are able to answer questions about these types of issues better than others, Christine Ford just had a very difficult time answering questions, and that's why she ended up with totally inconsistent, inaccurate timelines, changing stories, things that didn't make sense, inability to recall details, and on and on and on. Number 11, Tara Reade. She actually had actual consequences in her life that she actually could prove. So she said that because of this, she was basically blacklisted on Capitol Hill. She never worked on Capitol Hill again. That's true. She had her reputation sullied, and it was very difficult for her to work on Capitol Hill. That's what she wanted to do, but that went away. Christine Blasey Ford, on the other hand, had nothing throughout her life to corroborate or suggest her claims were believable at all. No subsequent conversations with anybody. She never suffered any consequences, such as being depressed and having to quit sports, being retaliated against for talking to other people, not going to other parties after the alleged incident. Nothing whatsoever to corroborate it. She never even told her husband until decades and decades and decades later, unlike Tara Reade, who told other people right away. That's the number 11th reason why the Tara Reade allegation is much more credible and compelling than the Christine Ford. Number 12, Tara Reade has others that have similar stories. Christine, no other examples. All the other women that have worked with Kavanaugh have said wonderful things about Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh has a great reputation with women. Joe Biden, on the other hand, not so much of a great reputation with women. Lucy Flores and other women have came out and talked about Joe Biden being a creep. So again, a pattern of behavior, consistent testimony from various women, et cetera, et cetera. Number 13. This is a difference between the two that shows that the media and the Democrats should be taking the Tara Reade allegation more seriously than Christine Ford. The whole point of this is to show about how inconsistent, hypocritical, and just terrible the Democrats and the left are for turning a very serious issue like sexual assault and women's rights and everything else into nothing but a cheap partisan political hack job machine, whatever you want to call it. But the Biden allegation is way worse. What Tara Reade said Biden did to her was actual penetration. And at least in the criminal law, that's enough to make it a substantially worse crime than what the allegation against Brett Kavanaugh was. The allegation of Brett Kavanaugh did not involve any penetration whatsoever. The allegation against Biden did involve penetration. So that is a substantial difference. This is a much more serious allegation, at least in the criminal law. So much more serious allegation against Biden, and yet a much more serious allegation, which is way more credible. And the Democrats are just trying to push through and let's get this over with. We're standing behind Biden. We're standing behind Biden, and yet they're the ones that apparently allege to care about women's rights so much and want to stop sexual assault so much. It's despicable the way that they're behaving with this. And it just goes to show that they don't give a whit about women, and you can't trust a word they say. Okay, number 14. The way that Tara Reade actually came out publicly about her story was not suspicious at all. Christine Blasey Ford's method of coming public with this, very, very suspicious. So Tara Reade has been trying to come out and trying to tell her story for a long time, and was literally shut down by a lot of media operatives because they're Democrats, and some of the Me Too organizations because they're Democrats, and she had a very hard time coming out, but she finally was able to go on a podcast. And she did this hour-long podcast and was able to tell her story. She's been coming out. She's got a credible story about her trying to find a lawyer, et cetera, et cetera. The way Christine Ford came out publicly, incredibly suspicious. She went to the Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein. She said that she didn't want to come out publicly, but then she was working with Dianne Feinstein. She ended up getting this hardcore Democrat lawyer who also represented Andrew McCabe. So she went secretly to Dianne Feinstein, and then Dianne Feinstein, a Democrat senator, let the the Christine Ford allegation out at a very politically convenient time for the Democrats. And there was a lot of inconsistencies with Christine Ford's reasoning, like claiming she didn't want this to go public, but then but the way she went public with it was going through a Democratic senator, which obviously if you're going to a Democratic senator, it's going to end up public. So very, very suspicious the way that Christine Ford's allegations came out, and very not suspicious the way Tara Reade's claims came out. Number 15, Kavanaugh didn't even remember Ford. They didn't even go to the same school. This was this allegedly like one-time thing, whereas Tara Reade actually worked for Biden. That is corroborating evidence right there. And again, this isn't determinative factor. This is one factor that makes the Tara Reade story more believable. But it's very easy to find anybody that went to high school with someone. It's much more difficult to find an actual a former coworker or a former employee, sort of an inferior. And so there's not that many people that have worked for Biden in the past. Certainly far fewer people that have worked for Biden than probably ever went to school with Kavanaugh. And so in terms of being able to the likelihood of somebody being able to find somebody to make up a story clearly weighs in favor of the Tara Reade allegation being more believable than the Christine Ford one. Number 16, the way that Brett Kavanaugh and Joe Biden have responded is also very different and tends to lend credibility to Tara Reade over Christine Ford. Brett Kavanaugh came out right away, answered all the questions, denied it. He produced his high school calendars. He still had all of his calendars, came out immediately, said, no, this is not true. This is totally made up. And he was very forceful in his denial and very passionate about his denial. Biden literally ignored it in the Dems, and they've tried to quiet her. They've tried to shut her up. They've tried to push it to the side. They've tried to make it go away. They've tried to sweep it under the rugs. Joe Biden has refused to release the Senate records that could corroborate some of the statements by Tara Reade about actually filing formal complaints and going to her superiors about some of the sexual harassment that Biden was doing. Joe Biden has refused to allow a search of his University of Delaware records that have his Senate records in it. And so you have, in one instance, you have a guy coming out and being totally transparent, answering every question, forcefully, incredibly denying it. On the other hand, you have a guy trying to hide and sweep it under the rug and shut her up and not being transparent and refusing all the records. Again, tends to indicate that the Tara Reade allegation is more likely true than the Christine Blasey Ford allegation. Number 17. Tara Reade had a much more credible explanation for why she was coming out now. Basically, her demeanor. She was saying she wants people to stop thinking we cannot speak out. One of the big things that bothered Tara Reade was the fact that she felt she couldn't speak out. She felt terrible about feeling that she couldn't speak out. She wanted to inspire and encourage others to actually speak out. She said she was doing it for her daughter, for the next generation, to say this is not okay to hide these things. We have to speak up, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas Christine Blasey Ford, basically, it was more of a negative thing. Like, she didn't really have a reason on her own to want to do this, but it was more just to stop Kavanaugh, and she criticized Kavanaugh, and it was more about just stopping Kavanaugh, whereas Tara Reade is more of a positive sort of reasoning to come out. So I think that's more credible. Number 18. The way that they found their lawyers and the way that they went about getting their lawyers and the story behind their lawyers also makes Tara Reade's allegation much more believable. Basically, what Tara Reade said is that she went to Time's Up, which is apparently a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. that helps women find lawyers women who were sexually assaulted find lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. Which is the exact, like, if you were really sexually assaulted and you wanted to come out about it, that's what you would do. You would try to find people that specialize in this issue. You would try to find a lawyer that would take it on pro bono. You would go to various nonprofit organizations, legal service organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Christine Blasey Ford went to Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein. Tara Reade's lawyer situation was incredibly suspicious too, because she got this former senior counsel at this Washington, D.C. law firm who then did it for pro bono, even though he had to quit his law firm to do it, and was Andrew McCabe's lawyer and was super involved with the Democrat Party. And Christine Blasey Ford got her lawyer through a Dianne Feinstein reference to this guy who had also represented Andrew McCabe, and then quit his firm and was doing it quote unquote pro bono. It's like, why would you do it if you're senior counsel at a good law firm? Why would you do this pro bono and quit your law firm over it? Very suspicious, didn't make sense. Whereas Tara Reade's story about her lawyer and how she found her lawyer, very, very credible, makes perfect sense why she did it. Number 19. Tara Reade is a liberal. Tara Reade's a Democrat. Tara Reade actually supports Biden's message. She doesn't have a politically motivated reason to do this. She actually wants to help Democrats. This goes to bias and motive and credibility. Christine Ford, on the other hand, was a long-time, lifelong Democrat. She had a partisan political reason to do what she did. Again, this is not a determinative factor or anything. This is just number 19 on one factor why Tara is more credible. I mean, they're both Democrats, right? They're both liberals. But the men that they accused, one is a conservative Republican and one is a Democrat liberal. So it's much more credible when you're criticizing somebody you worked for and somebody you agree with, versus when you're criticizing and accusing somebody who you hate and you disagree with. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to make up a story if it's somebody you hate and disagree with. Not as many reasons to make up a story to destroy somebody if you totally agree with them politically and are on the same side of them. The other one of the distinctions too, this doesn't really go to the credibility, but I thought this was illustrative of sort of the difference between the left and the media. Tara Reade was called names by Democrats and leftists. She was called a Russian agent. She was called a Russian bot, et cetera, et cetera. And the media is kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if they've, if not explicitly said those things, certainly treated her terribly. And frankly, the media really has just kind of ignored this, which is what the Democrats want them to do. And the media are Democrats, so it makes sense. Whereas on the other hand, Christine Blasey Ford was constantly called a doctor. Oh, Dr. Ford this, Dr. Ford that, Dr. Ford. And she's not a doctor. She doesn't have an MD. She doesn't have a DO. She's not a doctor, but the media was obsessed with calling her doctor. It was constant. Doctor this, doctor that, doctor this. So, and then there was somebody brought up a similarity, and then I'm going to conclude, and I've got some strong words here in conclusion. One of the similarities between the two is that they both waited a very long time to truly come out publicly. And Joe Biden obviously has been in public life a long time, and Tara Reade just came out, and so I don't think that's she waited this long to come out. It's automatically false. I do tend to think that waiting a long time to come out at this moment is a factor against you believing it. But when you have 20 different reasons why Tara Reade is believable and Christine Ford is not, then you have to ask, why did they take so long to come out? What's their reasoning behind it? With Tara waiting so long. Holy cow, I'm having a hard time breathing here. With Tara Reade, it actually makes sense why she waited this time to come out. Others had recently come out against Joe Biden, including Lucy Flores and others. It absolutely would not have made sense to come out in 2008. Barack Obama was an absolute rock star at the time. Joe Biden was the famous Obama's vice presidential pick, and she said she would have never been believed, and she'd have been criticized even more if she'd have come out then. But now obviously she feels like she can come out because other people have made allegations against Joe Biden. Joe Biden is claiming to have all this character. the Me Too movement, obviously. Whereas with Christine Ford and Kavanaugh, her only argument was basically that, well, she didn't really have an argument. She was like, oh, well, he's going to be on the Supreme Court, and the Me Too movement made me feel better about coming out. That doesn't make sense like the Biden one does, because Kavanaugh was already a federal judge at the time. If you were concerned about Kavanaugh becoming a federal judge, you would have done it before. And also, there's no others that had recently come out against Kavanaugh, so there's no reason that Christine Ford would have been more believable when she did come out versus if she'd come out when Biden was when Kavanaugh was first appointed to the federal judge. Whereas, that's different with Biden, because there was difference in believability between 2008 versus now, where there was not with Kavanaugh. So, in conclusion, these are 20, 21, 22, whatever it was, 23 reasons why the Tara Reade allegation against Joe Biden is way, way more credible than Christine Ford. Tara Reade, I believe her 100%. Listening to her voice and holding back tears, I mean, it made me so mad at Joe Biden that he would do this to a woman. It's truly disgusting what he's alleged to have done to her, and I think it's terrible, and I think it's a reason to not vote for him. And it's truly awful how horrible this is, and the lifelong impact it's had on this woman is despicable. And this is it's a very serious thing that I don't think we ought to take lightly at all. And this is a very serious thing. And I actually do care. I'm not doing this just for partisan political reasons. Like, I actually do care about women, and like if there were allegations against Republicans that were actually believable and credible, I'd be saying the same thing. But the point in this is exposing the Democrats and the left for being total hypocrites and treating these things so differently, and basically cheapening what is a very serious issue, which is sexual assault against women and sexual harassment against women, cheapening that down into a cheap political point. The main difference between these two stories, and we've seen massive, again, this is May 3rd, Sunday night, May 3rd. We've seen massive differences in treatment. The Tara Reade allegation has taken months and months and months of growing sort of grassroots movement to try to get this into the mainstream media, and it's just recently kind of barely come out. Finally, Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski asked Biden about it, but otherwise it's been basically pushed aside, shoved under the rug. Nobody's heard about it. It hasn't been in the news. Everybody's been trying to hide it. The exact opposite with Christine Ford. It was the number one story. Everybody was saying, we have to believe her, believe all women, believe all women. Time's up, Brett Kavanaugh. We have to ruin your career. Nonstop coverage. Oh, she's so brave. She's so courageous. Where are all the Democrats and leftists saying that Tara Reade is so brave and courageous? And so the difference between the treatment there, clearly Brett Kavanaugh's a conservative Republican. Joe Biden's the Democratic standard bearer. And for the Democrats and the left and the media and the academy and every other progressive out there in every other industry, and to treat these two differently just because of partisan political reasons, when there's a million reasons why Tara Reade is 10 times more credible than the Christine Ford, is truly disgusting. I think it's reprehensible. This is a serious issue that we should be taking seriously and doing a good faith effort to try to treat these fairly and treat every allegation fairly, and yes, take every allegation seriously and investigate every allegation. And the fact that they won't even investigate this, they won't even bring it up when it's way more credible, is just truly gross. So in conclusion, Tara Reade is way more credible, yet Dems are not taking this seriously, even though they tried to ruin Kavanaugh's life. It just shows the Democrats that they're very shallow, hypocritical. They lack values and principles. We should never take the left seriously again. Never take the mainstream media seriously again. They're obviously liars. They don't give a crap about the truth. They don't give a crap about women. They don't give a crap about sexual assault. Media, Dems, Academy, all the others, they're all in on it. They pretend to care, but they don't. Everything they do is political. It's all for politics. Everything they do is 100% politics. Holy cow. Dems won't even allow this to be investigated. And yet, they won't even get to the bottom of the documents that we know could potentially provide foolproof corroboration of this, which we know potentially exists in some of the University of Delaware documents with Joe Biden's. But nope, can't investigate it, can't do this, can't do that. Where with Christine Blasey Ford, they literally wanted to derail and stop a Supreme Court nomination to do full-on FBI and CIA investigations. Not only are the Democrats and liberals not calling for FBI and CIA investigations, but they're actually actively refusing to even take this seriously. So on one hand, you literally have the Democrats and the media trying to sweep under the rug and push to the side a genuine, credible, and even more serious allegation of actual rape. And instead, on the other hand, you've got this totally ridiculous complaint by Christine Ford, not credible, not believable, and they want full-on FBI and CIA investigations. It's just completely ridiculous. Democrats and liberals and leftists and progressives and communists and socialists using women's sexual assault issues as a cheap political weapon is absolutely grotesque. They're reducing what is a very, very serious issue that we should all be taking very seriously, which is sexual assault, and they're turning it into a cheap partisan political attack. They're trying to politicize sexual assault, an issue that we should all agree on is terrible and should be taken seriously, and yes, should ruin a man's career. If a man actually raped a woman, absolutely he should never be close to even being holding any political office. I 100% stand behind the idea that if you actually sexually assaulted a woman or raped a woman, you should never hold a public office ever. And instead of us all agreeing on that and all of us treating this, they've cheapened it. The left and the Democrats have cheapened this and are trying to divide the country on political grounds on a sexual assault issue, which is disgusting and grotesque. And any of these leftists out there that are trying to push aside this Tara Reade allegation, you ought to be absolutely ashamed of yourself. That is shameful. If you're not calling for Joe Biden to step down, and if you're not refusing to vote for Joe Biden, that is shameful, and you should be ashamed of yourself that you would actually do that. That is unbelievable. Have some principles. Stand up for women like you actually claim to, because this is a terrible, disgusting thing that Joe Biden did to this woman. It's very sad, and I'm sick of the left and the Democrats defending it. And especially when this one is so much more credible, so much more believable. And then the way that they reacted to Brett Kavanaugh shows beyond a doubt, that the left in this country and the Democrats in this country are not to be trusted. And you should never trust them. And that's it. What more can be said? Thank you guys all for being here. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitch. I do these live on Twitch. Check out my Teespring store, teespring.com/stores/lecturefan. Thank you guys all. Like and subscribe.